Hi, this is James from Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to look at the 3 to 4 player game Who Goes There, second edition, published by Certifiable Studios. So let's go ahead and go down the table. I'm going to give you a brief overview of how the game plays. Not necessarily the rules itself, but just basically the flow of the game. And then we'll come back and I'll give you my final thoughts. Okay, so this is basically a 4 player setup of Who Goes There. Now, the base game does come with 4 different players you can be, and they all have slightly asymmetric powers. Right out the gate, I have Dr. Cooper, but on the board also is Kenner, McReady, and Gary, and they have their own little deck, and they have their own little special ability you can unlock throughout the game. So this game here itself isn't very complicated, although the rulebook is fairly large for the game. You can see it's a pretty large rulebook, but explaining it to other players is pretty simple. I'm not going to go over all the rules. I'm just going to give you the general idea how the game plays to show you how easy it can be to teach. Basically, what you're going to do to start is you're going to set up the board by giving each player 4 their action cubes, and 1 action cube is going to be locked. Their extra action die is going to be locked. 1 of their stamina is going to be locked. They're going to have 3 stamina in here ready to go, and 2 that they can add in. And throughout the games, there's different ways to add stamina in. You'll also have these success dice that you'll place out. These are your experience cubes. The white is 1 experience, the blue is 5. And you'll set up each of these decks. So inside the building here, you're going to have your workshop deck and your storage deck. Outside, you're going to have the different phases of the game. You'll have your phase 1 deck, phase 2 deck, and phase 3 deck. At the start of the game, phase 2 and phase 3 are not available, only phase 1. And each player can pick where they want to start out in the game. You'll pick the captain, which is generally going to be, per the rules, the person with the lowest number here. So this one would be the captain. So basically the captain's in charge of the upkeep of the game. And there's ways that you can remove the captain. The number 1 way is right before you go to the helicopter. Everyone that's not the captain votes to see if you wanted to dispose the captain before you do that. Because basically what you're doing is you're doing different things to go all the way. This marker gets all the way to the helicopter, and then you're trying to take off and leave without the thing. So during each round, what's going to end up happening is this marker is going to move up. Wherever it's on is going to... You're going to resolve this case. It's just being outside is going to cost 1 stamina. So that means the stamina would be lost here and put up into the exhausted area. Stamina determines how many dice you get to roll. First one's 1, and then if you go up into this area, it's going to be 2. When you get into these 2 phases, and there's 3 eating phases and 3 sleeping phases. When you get to the eating phases, you have to be able to feed your people. If you can't feed your people, then you're going to take a vulnerability card, and I'll explain what that does in a minute. If you in the sleeping phase, you have to bunk up with 2 different people, or bunk up in pairs. If you don't bunk up in pair, you'll have to take a vulnerability card. When you bunk up in a pair, you're going to have to use these clickers. If you're infected, I'm going to show you how that happens in a second. You would sit this to this side when you passed it over. Now you are allowed to lie, so you could do that. But if you pass this over like this, and you were infected, you can't lie that you are infected, but you can lie if you're infected that you're not. You pass this over to the other player; they are now also infected. But if both players show this little green here, then you're good. Infected does matter for the game. You don't want to infect everyone because you need someone to get off if you're infected, you need to be able to leave on the helicopter with someone that's not infected in order to be able to win. So it actually brings up a point. How do you win? Well, the non-infected players win by leaving on the helicopter and surviving. The infected player wins by leaving on the helicopter with someone non-infected, and they win because they need someone to eat on the way to the new world to destroy everything. So what we're going to go over is what you can do on your turn now. So actually, we missed a very important part. So when we move it here, we're going to resolve a camp event first. Camp events are normally always bad, but this one happens to be not horrible, but failure, receive 1 critical strike. So everyone gets a critical strike. So, and it's a setback, and it's a lockdown. So during lockdowns, if you don't have a key, you can't really move around between these areas. You're stuck where you're at, either outside or inside. If you have a key, you can move through, and only the person with the key. So that gets into damages. So it's basically a 3-strike you're out system. If you get 3 strikes, whether regular or critical, you're knocked down. You have 3 rounds before you're out of the game where someone can come and revive you. And for an action, they can actually remove one of your regular damages, and that'll revive you. So, and for every round that you are not revived, one of your damages become a frostbite. Frostbite can only be removed well, the number one way of removing frostbite is the bonfire, which I'll explain in a second, but you have your regular strikes and you have a critical strike. A critical strike, if you get that, then every round that you do not remove your critical strike, you're going to get a normal strike. And like I said, if you have 3 strikes, you're out. So that's what the damage is. On your turn, you can do multiple different types of actions. On here, you get a really nice player aid that shows you basically everything you can do. You can play cards, which is free. So you can have, if you have any cards in your hand, which at the start of the game, you're going to get some workshop and storage cards that you can play. You can move 1. So you can move 1, but you can only move once per, and that costs 1 of your action points, and you can only move once per round, and you can't move back to where you were. You can spend 2 action points to search, and you'll just get the top card of the deck, and you'll put that in hand. This one happens to be a nice little gun that you can use. So for 2 action dice, you can do an attack roll. And you can attack other players and do damage to them and try to take them out, but be sure that you know what you're doing, because everyone's very suspicious in this game, and if you end up killing a player, you're probably going to be the next one that's get killed, even though you might have eliminated a thing from the game. They can't be sure. So that gets into, you do these different things. You can search these different places. You can trade cards. You can perform like first aid. You can do all this stuff. Whenever you search outside, you're going to get 2 experience points. You can spend actions to roll for experience points. You can spend actions to, and then that's not guaranteed success. You can try to heal yourself, all different things that you can use for these action points. Once you're out of these action points, you're out of the round, and you have to wait till the next round before you can play again. And this goes in whatever order the commander picks, so for the round or as a group. If you draw one of these vulnerability cards, this is good. 1 out of all these cards is going to have this. And if you draw this card, you are now infected. So that's how the vulnerability works in the game. And you're going to keep going, keep getting these areas, keep drawing this stuff. You can use these cards to do different things. Couple of the cool things that you can do with these cards is you can use these different pieces that you get. You're going to look at this guide here, and you can upgrade and get different weapons and place them in here. You can hold up to 2 different normal weapons or 1 big weapon. You can later on, for 4 experience, which doesn't include an action, you can unlock this, which lets you hold up to 3 different items, or depending on the size, 1 large one. So you can expand what you can hold. You can unlock this die here for 6 experience points, and this die right here will let you roll at the beginning of your turn. You get to do extra stuff. You can unlock your extra action point cube, and you can unlock another stamina. You can also unlock your special ability. So those are different things you can unlock for your experience that you get throughout the game. To help make your character more powerful, you can get more weapons through building through these actions right here. You can discard 4 cards into here. And if you have some sort of lighter or whatever, there's a couple different things that you can use to start a bonfire. If you start a bonfire, you can get rid of some of those frostbite. If you're on the inside area, it's very beneficial to do so. Frostbite, it's one of the only ways you're going to be able to get rid of it in the game. So that is a thing. Also, if you're not necessarily the bad guy, or if you are the bad guy, you can get rid of some beneficial stuff into the bonfire because they don't really get to see it. They get removed from the game after it's lit. It does help everything, but in the way this is set up, it's not really necessarily where the thing is going to be actively trying to take out the other players, because again, you're going to try to get people to the helicopter, or at least one person. You might want to infect another person so you have like a cohort that's helping you out throughout the game. But in general, you're going to want to try to stay hidden so that when you go to the helicopter, you're on it and prevent hopefully only one survivor or one non-infected person is, at least. So like I said, this will keep going until we get to the helicopter phase. Once we get to the helicopter phase, everyone votes to see, and there's a lot of rules on the helicopter phase, but in general, this is what happens. When you get to the helicopter phase, you're going to vote to see if you want to dispose the captain. If you dispose the captain, you get a new captain. They come up. You're going to that captain is going to decide who gets to go on. After that's done, then you're going to reveal your clickers to see who's infected and who's not. If everyone's infected, everyone loses. If no one's infected, yay, you get to resolve the helicopter phase normally. If someone is infected, they're basically, their helicopter points and their rolls are going to count against yours. You're going to need 6 points per survivor on the ship to get off. So if all 3 of these were on here, you're going to need 18 points to get it on there. So you're going to take all the helicopter points, which I'm going to show you some of those. You're going to mainly get those from searching out here. Let's see here. Those are thing attacks. These are the outside portion. Going through it can be very dangerous. So you have to be careful. But like here's one helicopter point. You can technically get enough helicopter points you can just take off without a problem. But you're going to get helicopter points through those. This deck will be available once this gets into here. This deck will be available once it gets in here. You can go to these locations and get more helicopter points. You're going to total those up, and then you're going to roll the helicopter die, which is this really cool die that's only really used for the helicopter. You'll roll it, and in this case, I got 5, so I can add 5 helicopter points to the total. And so you take your total, and if there was an affected person, you subtract that, and if you met your number, you get to take off. If you didn't meet your number, and there's an affected person on there, the infected person wins. Otherwise, the humans win. If there's no infected person on here, and you don't make your helicopter point, no one wins, the helicopter crashes. So that's how the helicopter works. A couple other things to point out during the game is this door and the boiler. So throughout the game, through camp events and other things, these are going to get damage. And if either of these get 3 damage, bad things happen. This door here protects you from the elements outside, and this keeps you warm inside of your building. And also having a boiler explosion does horrible things because shrapnel and stuff. So these 2 areas you're going to want to maintain throughout the game. Make sure they don't hit the 3 strikes is another thing you need to consider on there. Also, as the thing, if you end up to be that, you're going to probably end up wanting to help with that a lot, because again, you aren't really trying to kill everyone. You're trying to get on the helicopter. So in a nutshell, that's how the game plays. I know it's a little scattered on all the different things, but I just want to give you a general idea of all the things you can do throughout the game and the idea of how the game plays. So let's go ahead back up to the table here, and I'll give you my final thoughts on who goes there. Okay, so that was a little scattered explanation of the game, but in general, basically all you're trying to do is survive in the Arctic until you can get on the helicopter and leave. As the thing, you're trying to stay undetected and leave on the helicopter with at least 1 human. You may or may not infect another person, The more people you infect, the less likely you are to be able to win, because you need to get on the plane with a human. So there's a balance there. You're going to try to be helpful enough that you can get on the plane, but maybe cause a little suspicion on there to maybe have less people on the plane, so they're less likely to basically overthrow you. So if you're looking at this outside of theme, basically what you're trying to do is there's no real reason for the thing to expose itself. It's best to just stay hidden. But there's the consideration on there where you don't want everyone getting on the helicopter at the end. You're going to want to have the least amount of non-infected people on the helicopter to give you a chance to win. So you're going to, as the thing, going to want to try to make it seem like someone else is infected. So that is the big push and pull throughout the game. There's a lot of different things you can do in the game to keep yourself healthy, keep yourself going. You may, as the thing, allow the boiler to explode or the door to go, just sort of get some gameplay in there so that maybe reduce the number of players. But in the end, it comes down to that helicopter taking off. And that can be a turnoff for a lot of people, because if you didn't go after those helicopter points, then you're really leaving it to the rolling of that die to leave to win or lose the game. And for new players, that can be a really big put off, because you just did all this stuff for like 2 hours, and at the end of the game, you're rolling a die to see what happens. But as you play this game more and you learn the intricacies of the game, you can figure out ways to, and if the thing players, and if everyone's playing to actually win, it makes the game better. So like if the thing players are actively trying, like, I need to do nothing but win this game, the game gets even better. But searching for those helicopter points is super important. Pushing your luck to get those. You might have get a bunch of those exposure cards. But in the end, you need those helicopter points to win. And then you need to determine who's the thing that's best your ability to get off on the helicopter. So you're going to have to take a look at how everyone's acting. Now, you could say the thing doesn't have to do anything, but they have a higher chance of winning, like I said, if there's less survivors on the helicopter. I know they have to get more points the more survivors that are on the helicopter, but in the end, if you only have, let's say, one person in the thing on there, it's going to be highly unlikely that that one person is going to have enough to overcome the thing and get the helicopter off. So really, it's a game where you need to play it once, understand what's happening, have the right group of people, and play it again. And the more you play it, the more enjoyable it gets. So who's this for? It's for basically fans of the thing and that sort of IP. It's also going to be for fans who like light social deduction. This is not heavy social deduction. I mean, you can go the whole game and not really, the thing could just act like a normal player and just, you would never know. But to make the game great, should act the parts, and that's how that's going to work out. So basically that's going to be what you want to consider if you want to try to consider this game, if it's for you. So that's my thoughts on Who Goes There 2nd edition. Thank you for watching.